Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. It is great to be on with you. Praise be to God. We're going to be doing some fact-checking today. Things that I have said over the past week or so. A couple of points that need to be fact-checked, and I've got some great sources, praise be to God. So we're going to be doing that today on the show to include, apparently, according to the National Catholic Register, Bishop or Cardinal Burke never met with Cardinal Prevost. No matter how many people reported it, and I reported it many times, apparently that's not true, at least according to the National Catholic Register. They never met. That's what they said in an article I'm going to link to in the show notes today. That's also fact check number one. Fact check number two. Apparently, TLMs were being said in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, and I'm guessing other basilicas too, but only one per day in the Francis Pontificate. So praise be to God for that. But maybe, just maybe, we'll have more than one per day moving forward. At least that's the hope and dream. So today on the program, we're going to be talking about what the church is going to see coming next, what the church needs in Pope Leo, and what happens next. Edward Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need is going to be on the team. We're also finding out today that sitting right next to Cardinal Prevost at the conclave was Cardinal Luis Rafael Sacco, who turned to him and said, please speak out on behalf of persecuted Christians, specifically in the Middle East. But I'm hoping that means everywhere. We're going to have that conversation with Edward Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need. Will Pope Leo speak out on behalf of the Nigerians, for instance? Will he speak out for the persecuted in China? We're going to see what he has to say about that. 30 past the hour, Dr. Janet Smith is on the team. Let's talk about what happens next. What do we need to see out of Pope Leo in the coming days, weeks, months, years? All of that and more today on the show. While we're just learning this morning that the Episcopalian Church now refuses to resettle white Afrikaners. They don't want any part of them, no matter the genocide that's happening in South Africa. Just let that sink in. Show notes for you at thestationofthecross.com/ACT on this day, May 13th, the feast of Our Lady of Fatima. Let us remember her and all of the message that she has given to us about the wolves in sheep's clothing amongst us. Let's pray for their souls today as well. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and now your saint of the day.
Our Lady of the Holy Rosary of Fatima, pray for us. On this day in the year of our Lord 1917, the Blessed Virgin Mary first appeared to 3 shepherd children on a hillside near Fatima in Portugal, heralded by 3 apparitions of the guardian angel of Portugal the previous year. Saints Francisco and Jacinta Marto were just 8 and 7 years old at the time. Their cousin, Venerable Lucia dos Santos, was 10. Only Jacinta and Lucia ever heard the Blessed Mother's voice. Our Lady visited 5 more times, always on the 13th of the month, except in August when the children were imprisoned by a Freemasonic government official. Among other messages, Our Lady urged repentance, recitation of the Holy Rosary, and devotion to her Immaculate Heart, so deeply wounded by sins against her Son Jesus. She also disclosed the famed 3 secrets to the children, 2 of which Lucia would reveal in 1941. On October 13th, 1917, as she had previously promised, the Blessed Mother revealed herself under the title of Our Lady of the Rosary, and caused the sun to dance in the sky, as witnessed by thousands of people, Catholic and anti-Catholic alike. Saints Francisco and Jacinta died within 3 years. Lucia became a nun, and received further messages from Our Lady clarifying the first Saturday devotions and urging the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons. Our Lady of Fatima, pray for us.
And now your headline news. Breitbart reports Trump takes major action to reduce drug costs. President Donald Trump signed an executive order yesterday to reduce drug prices in America to rates similar to what those are in other nations. Trump signed the order during a press conference in the Roosevelt Room, flanked by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and others. A White House fact sheet notes that the order directs Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer to ensure foreign countries are not engaged in practices that purposefully and unfairly undercut market prices and drive price hikes in the United States. Catholic News Agency is reporting Pope Leo XIV and Zelensky hold first phone call about Russia-Ukraine war. Pope Leo XIV and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky have spoken on the phone, the Vatican said yesterday. Matteo Bruni, director of the Holy See Press Office, confirmed that the two leaders had spoken after the Pope expressed concern for Ukraine during his Sunday address delivered from the central loggia of St. Peter's Basilica. Zelensky said he and the Pope specifically discussed the plight of thousands of children deported by Russia. The president also said he invited the Holy Father to make an apostolic visit to Ukraine during the phone call. And Catholic Vote reports Hamas releases last American prisoner. An American Israeli soldier, the last U.S. citizen held by Hamas, was released Monday after being taken captive during the Hamas's initial October the 7th, 2023 attack. The Associated Press called the release a goodwill gesture toward the Trump administration, coinciding with his visit to the Middle East this week. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us from John chapter 10, verses 22 through 30. And it was the feast of the dedication at Jerusalem, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. The Jews therefore came round about him and said to him, How long dost thou hold our souls in suspense? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I speak to you, and you believe not. The works that I do in the name of my Father, they give testimony of me. But you do not believe because you are not of my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them life everlasting, and they shall not perish forever, and no man shall pluck them out of my hand. That which my Father hath given me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of the hand of my Father. I and the Father are one. The Jews then took up stones to stone him. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. The great commentator Cornelius a Lapide would say, and it was winter. This was stated, says Theophilus, to signify the approaching time of the Passion, which took place the following spring. St. Cyril adds that it was said in order to give the reason why Jesus walked in the porch, so as to be under cover from the cold. Mystically, there is here signified the coldness of the Jews, who draw not near to the fire, i.e., who believe not in Christ. St. Augustine says, quote, the Jews were cold in charity and love, and were burning with eagerness to do hurt. They approached him not as followers, but pressed on him as persecutors. Do thou also, says Theophilus, while it is winter, that it is while this present life is shaken with the whirlwinds of iniquity, keep the spiritual dedication, feast, by daily renewing thyself, and by ordering ascensions of the heart. Christ will be present to thee in Solomon's porch, making for thee a peaceable resting place. He goes on, how long dost thou keep us in suspense? We wish to see the Messiah and hope that thou wilt declare thyself to be he. They pretend this in order to draw a confession from Christ on which to accuse him. For as St. Augustine says, they do not desire the truth, but are getting up a charge to accuse him of making himself the Messiah. So also St. Chrysostom, Theophilus, Eudemus, and others. But Christ so guarded his reply as not to give room for a false charge, and yet made it clear to the faithful that he was Christ, the Son of God. I give unto them eternal life, that is, if they abide in faith and obedience to me. I give it in this world through grace by hope, and I will hereafter give it in glory. He invites the Jews by this promise to become his sheep, and reproves them for refusing to do so. They have been given an invitation. The invitation is still out. We want them to come. Please come. There is only one way to the Father, and that is through Jesus Christ. There is no other plan for salvation of souls on planet Earth. Just the one bread, the one loaf, the one body, the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. That is the sacrament of salvation on earth. This is the plan. For God so dearly loved all souls that he sent his only begotten Son. Woe unto us if we reject him. Notice the details in John's Gospel, though. Solomon's porch. This is evidence that despite what your friends may say to you, that John's Gospel was written by John, an eyewitness to these events, someone who walked that porch himself many times. I love the details of John's Gospel. Pray, fast, do penance, but choose wisely, and try to get others to do too. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Did you know you can help evangelize simply by using your cell phone? The Station of the Cross is partnering with iCatholic Mobile, America's only Catholic mobile phone company. When you join iCatholic Mobile, a portion of every dollar will support our programming. Plus, you'll enjoy great service with iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, text, and talk. With iCatholic Mobile, you can stay connected with family and friends while also spreading the truth of Jesus Christ with clarity and charity. Join today at iCatholicMobile.com.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. It is great to be on with you. Praise be to God. Hey, coming up at 30 past the hour, we're going to have a conversation about fact-checking, about what comes next. I'm going to be linking to several articles for you. Cardinals' voting patterns emerge as Leo XIV is welcomed as Pope of Peace from the National Catholic Register. Archbishop Gonswine and Leo XIV. This Pope inspires hope, hope, hope. And even Newsmax is getting in on the action. Conclave Secrets, Why Prevost Won, Perelin Lost. Very interesting, that one, I would say, because it talks about how some of those cardinals on the other side of the equation maybe missed their opportunity. I don't know. We're going to link to all of that at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. By the way, special shout out to our good friends, iCatholic Mobile. It's a wireless phone company that supports our cause and what we do here. We love having them on the team, and you might consider them and check them out at iCatholicMobile.com. Joining us now, though, is friend of the show, Edward Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need, churchinneed.org. We'll link to that as well. Edward, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you for having me.
You know, I saw from this National Catholic Register article that I'm linking to, Cardinals' voting patterns emerge as Leo XIV is welcomed as Pope of Peace. There was a very interesting paragraph here. It says, Cardinal Louis Raphael Sacco, Patriarch of Baghdad of the Chaldeans, revealed that he was sitting next to Cardinal Robert Prevost during the vote in the Sistine Chapel. He told the Register he had asked Pope Leo to speak out on behalf of persecuted Christians in the Middle East. So what an opportunity, and he struck while the iron was hot. What do you think about that, Edward?
Well, it's wonderful, and it's great the way the Holy Spirit works. We are very hopeful that with a change of administration, there will be an opportunity for Christians to become more prominent. I don't want to sound terrible, but more prominently positioned in world news. the Holy Father, Pope Francis, was well known for communicating weekly, if not more, with the Christians stuck in Gaza. And that was a great consolation to them. And consolation is good and support is good, but really what we need is some action. And hopefully this is something that might happen going forward.
I would love to see Pope Leo XIV speak out boldly for the persecuted in China, Nigeria. I mean, there's so many countries you and I have talked about. Nicaragua is a continuing problem. And it seems like we weren't getting a lot of messaging on some of those hotspots. I was glad to hear about Pope Leo XIV making comments about urging for a ceasefire immediately in Gaza. Do you think he will? Do you think he will maybe go beyond what Francis was doing in the last pontificate?
Well, not to become necessarily to be prophetic or try to be, but there is a hope. I look at this as an opportunity similar to when JP2 came in and you had Ronald Reagan in the United States, who was working behind the scenes to undermine many of the evil forces of communism. Today, at least from the surface and a lot of the recent news, the Trump administration is working very hard to stop a lot of the warfare, Pakistan and India, Ukraine and Russia, Gaza and Israel. One that's not mentioned is the sort of the undeclared war on Christians in Nigeria. But all of these could be places in the world where the church can really make a difference, and they have been on the ground. It would be good if there was a cooperation among nations as well as with the Vatican to help. So again, Patriarch Sacco, as God would put it, was sitting next to him, and Iraq as a place where we can just look historically. In the last 25 years, they went from a small Christian population to an almost gone Christian population. Oftentimes when we look at places like Nigeria, which is 50% Christian, we can look back to, for example, what's happened in Pakistan or Turkey, historical countries that had presences of Christians that are essentially almost, the communities are almost gone. And it's too late. So we can be good leaven, but it's much better when you have more yeast than just a few grains.
What do you make of the reports that have been coming out the last few days, maybe in a week now, that Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu aren't getting along anymore because it seems like Netanyahu wants more military action and Donald Trump wants less?
Well, again, the position of the church, aid to the church in need, is really not military or sort of international government, but there are always positives when you see these strong alliances that seem to be pushing towards war. Either break apart or weaken, that there's an opportunity here too, in that, in the American press, for the most part, you'll hear the story of, bad versus good versus bad, but oftentimes it's bad versus bad. It's not just everybody in the game is doing a good thing. It's whether it's political power, whether it's gain of territory. The Christians in Gaza, for example, we had a small community of maybe 2,000 Christians living there, relatively peacefully, but they were living there. Now it's a community of a few hundred. That just shows you what can happen, and that happened in the span of 3 years. It is something that we'd have to say Israel, while we go there for pilgrimages and many of the holy sites are wonderful to see and experience, Bethlehem, 70% or more Christian is now down to 2%. It has happened under the governance of Israel. So there was no effort on Israel's part to protect Christians or Christian populations. Oftentimes they're looked at as fodder or just part of the terrain. And this is something that we have to be really aware of as Christians, that we do have to speak up. I know we mentioned Nigeria often, and recently, a few weeks ago, there's been a change in tone in Nigeria by some of the bishops. Oftentimes they're talking about some very conciliatory language and speaking peacefully and hopefully. we actually had bishops saying that it might come time for Christians to arm themselves, which is, a incredible jump from, sort of being cannon fodder to actually doing something. And again,
Right.
It's not about us advocating for arming Christians and creating militias or anything like that. But it does say something about something needs to be done, something physical, practical, something at the government level needs to be done. And recently in Benway, the governor has sort of finally stood up and said that they're going to commit many more police to the Christian areas and to the IDP camps in Benway to protect Christians. And I've said it before, but Benway was a place in Nigeria that was the most Catholic. 6.2 million Christians. I'm 6.2 million population, 97% Christian, 72% Catholic. That's, 4.5 million or so Catholics living in that one concentrated state. And right now, 40% of them, 40% of those 6 million are displaced.
Wow.
And this is the breadbasket. It's the center of Nigeria where they get their food. So, we heard about the power outages in places like Spain and Belgium and London. And all of these things are happening, and it affects people for a day. If that collapses in Nigeria, you're talking about famine for tens of millions of people. And what do? You don't just turn a switch on. It's not like, we can repair the power. And after 2 days, it's no food for a season, 3 or 4 months. And children will have stunted development. These are things that we take for granted here. And the Christian community has been serving Nigeria in that way for a very long time, producing a great preponderance of the food in Nigeria. So we can't just look at Christian versus Muslim or Christian versus whatever, but to say the practical parts of life, that the church fills a void. And obviously, as our new Pope and sort of follower of Augustine, that void is God. That
Amen.
our hearts are empty in society and in culture without God, and that's the church's place. And that's where we have to make a strong position. We have to be the heart of these communities, and we have to remember that Christ has to be the center of it.
Yesterday, I reported from the Gatestone Institute. They had an article out about, summarized, it's 70% of persecuted Christians are living under or in an Islamic state. So it's either under Islamic governance or in the name of Islam, they're being persecuted in the most extreme category of that. Do you think His Holiness Pope Leo will speak to that? It seems like that's the third rail of Pope Francis, especially with his efforts with the Abraham Accord and all these things to make conciliatory efforts towards Islam, was never willing to really address the elephant in the room. Do you think Pope Leo will?
I don't want to speak for the Holy Father or sort of project what might happen. I do know, and we remember it wasn't that long ago that Pope Benedict made a famous statement that was just a historical perspective about the role of Islam. And because of that, there was an incredible...
Was that the Regensburg Address?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And all he was doing was speaking of history, fact. He wasn't making any sort of critical attack on any sort of philosophy or anything like that. So it is something that happens oftentimes when people will call aid to the church in need and say, we should do something. And we always have to be cognizant of the fact that when we speak or when we do something, it's not just a political position. It's tens of thousands, if not millions of people get affected. It's not a simple answer easily to say. I always remember Christ on the cross and say that God the Father sacrificed his son. How many of us would sacrifice our children? How many of us would say, here, go out to die, or not go out to die, but you're going to die and you're going to die a horrible death. And that's what these people have to look at. And, so the church has a position, and as in World War II, things happen behind the scenes. We're very hopeful that there's going to be a change. There's going to be sort of new breath in many of these conversations. We're hopeful that please God that the good part of the American ethic, the American spirit, will be part of this. That the sort of the can-do attitude, the doing the dirty work, not afraid to push and to make changes. But at the same time, we have to remember this is a 2,000-year-old institution. Things move very slowly. They move very cautiously. So we can't always expect an answer tomorrow. There could be changes. That
Why not,
slowly.
Edward? I am tired of waiting. I want it now. I'm American. This is how it works in America. We get what we need right now. I don't want to wait till tomorrow or some other day. We need action. We need it right now. We need a call for Christian nations to come to the rescue. But I guess that ship has sailed. At least that's what I'm told.
I've celebrated 25 years with Aid to the Church in Need, and I have a feeling that the answer will not come in another 25 years.
You sound like my producer. Stop it. Anyway, I'm glad you're on the team. God bless you, Edward Clancy. If you want to come back at the top of the hour, I'll love to have you in the after show. Aid to the Church in Need, churchinneed.org. Check them out. They're doing amazing work. We're so grateful to have them here. Coming up, I still want to talk about some of those fact-checking things. Dr. Janet Smith is supposed to stop by. So a lot more conversation about what the church needs now and what will be coming in the future. All of that and a lot more of A Catholic Take. But I would be super grateful if you do me the favor of sharing us with a friend. However you listen, however you tune in, share us with a friend. We'd be appreciative. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes away. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean, and here are your headline news. Just the News reports Trump floats detour to Constantinople for Ukraine-Russia talks. Whoops, was that out loud? I meant Istanbul. Anyway, yesterday, President Donald Trump told a crowd of reporters at the White House that in the midst of his Gulf states excursion this week, he is considering flying over to Istanbul on Thursday to mediate a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. We've got to get it done. We've got to save 5,000 lives per week, he says. It remains unclear, though, if Russian President Vladimir Putin will attend in person. Putin proposed direct negotiations after leaders from Germany, France, Poland, and the UK demanded a 30-day ceasefire and threatened further sanctions on Moscow. By the way, did you see that train video with Macron? Very interesting, isn't it? Ground News reports remains of missing American journalists found in Syria cemetery. The body of American journalist Austin Tice was reportedly found in a cemetery in northern Syria after being missing for 13 years. Hostage Aid Worldwide stated that the Tice family will issue an official statement. Biden apparently thought he was still alive and hoped to get him back despite any real evidence. God rest his soul. Catholic Vote reports U.S. bishops speak out against the evil of pornography. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has released an updated version of its pastoral letter on pornography, making the 10th anniversary of the original a new edition titled Create in Me a Pure Heart, a Pastoral Response to Pornography. And those are your headline news. Like I said at the top of the hour, I'm going to be linking to several articles for you today. Cardinals' voting pattern emerges as Leo XIV is welcomed as a Pope of Peace. One of the big questions in my mind has been, how is it possible that certain key cardinals who are politically savvy, astute politicians, to say the least, how could we get a great Pope, a good Pope, slipping past them? How did they let that happen? When they're all seemingly happy, it's always been a question mark on my mind. Well, some of that is coming out today in several of these articles, the National Catholic Register article, as well as a Newsmax article linking to both of those, plus one from Archbishop Gonsfine over at the Catholic Herald. Again, the stationofthecross.com/ACT. I do want to share two fact checks from this that I mentioned at the top of the hour. Number one, that I thought was very interesting, coming from this National Catholic Register article. It talked about how Cardinal Parolin was believed to be a leading contender in early voting, especially among Pope Francis's strongest supporters, possibly attracting 40, 50 votes, but he was unable to obtain a broader support. votes from other leading candidates such as Cardinal Louis Tagli, Matteo Zuppi, Mario Gretsch, Pablo Virgilio David, and Jean-Marc Aveline were also divided, especially among the Italians, Asians, and Africans. No momentum. Candidates were also split between Cardinals Peter Erdo and Robert Serra, as well as Pizzaballa and Rangic. Votes began to coalesce around Cardinal Rangic, but they were not enough of them. This is interesting. This is where things get interesting. Once all these candidates were effectively eliminated, the stage was set for them for Cardinal Prevost to emerge, already considered a possible compromise candidate by many cardinals going into the conclave. He began picking up votes in the third vote, including among conservative voters, helped in part by Cardinal Timothy Dolan, lending his weight to Cardinal Prevost's candidacy. By the fourth ballot, Cardinal Prevost had secured more than 100 votes, well above the two-thirds majority of 89 required to be elected. And this is the fact check. I've reported this many times already. It says this was achieved without any pre-conclave lobbying on Cardinal Prevost's part. Contrary to Italian media reports, the Register can confirm that Cardinal Raymond Burke never received the future pope in his apartment during the period of the general congregations, nor any other pressure to vote for him. I am stunned by that. There were so many reports that he had met with in the apartment of Raymond Burke, which I thought would have been an amazing thing, a very positive thing. And yet it turns out that's not true. What are we to make of that? Somehow, some way, he just slipped through. He just slipped through. Other sources echo Cardinal Koch's sentiment that those meetings were held in a collegial and helpful atmosphere. They also said that the discussions were very frank, with both praise and criticism of the past pontificate given plenty of airing, in contrast to the carefully controlled and prosaic press releases issued by the Holy See Press Office in the days prior to the conclave. One particular area discussed concerned loose adherence to church law during the past 12 years, and Pope Leo XIV, who had a doctorate in canon law, is expected to address this concern. I pray he does. He may also examine liturgical laws and Vatican oversight of those regulations. It is not certain if at this stage Pope Francis's suppression of the Traditional Latin Mass will be included in any canonical reset, but it is very probable that representatives will be made to Pope Leo sometime in the near future regarding those restrictions. Jake, let me know when we got Dr. Smith back. I'm going to link to this article as well as the one from the Newsmax, Conclave Secrets, Why Prevost Won, Parolin Lost. I found this also very, very interesting. So the issue in China, the Vatican-China deal, was a major issue, according to this article, according to those pre-conclave conversations. Some saw it as a sellout to the communist Chinese regime, giving Beijing de facto control over the church in China. Cardinal Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, was largely blamed for that. And there was financial abuse issues in the Vatican, something we've talked about extensively. The Vatican has numerous financial problems, including a $1.5 billion unfunded liability for its pension system. Several cardinals insisted the next pope leave the Vatican Hotel, Santa Marta, and return to the papal apartments. One participant told me that by the day of the conclave began, Parolin looked beat up. Another told me Parolin was a good priest and had been tortured by Francis, who changed his mind every 5 minutes and was notoriously difficult to deal with. Parolin had sought to resign more than once as Secretary of State, but was urged to stay because he was a stabilizing force at the Vatican. The meeting at the conclave is secret, but inevitably word spills out as to what happens there. I mean, Cardinal Tobin and Supich were on a stage like the day after telling everything that they had done in the conclave. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was secret. It goes on. So it was, and I have a clear understanding of this conclave from multiple Vatican sources. At the opening vote took place on Wednesday. It was helter-skelter, though quite controlling. Francis had never set in motion a plan to effectively name his successor. He's not supposed to. That's what the conclave document, that's what the document that governs these things is supposed to do. Francis selected 108 of 135 voting cardinals. Oh, I should say also, though, in the early church, however, it was very, very common for the Pope to name an expected successor. But that was the early church. It goes on. An astounding 80% of those that Francis named had he weighed in before his death with one candidate, he may have been able to push through his person. Surprisingly, I was told, the strongest supporters of Francis had never organized to get behind one candidate. And this is this is why I am struggling today. This is it right here. As I said, I want to believe. I want to trust that this is an amazing thing. But why don't I? Why don't you, Joe? Just trust. Just trust. Well, because God has an active will and he has a permissible will. God desires and has designed me to be holy. He built me and gave me everything so that I'll have no excuses to be successful, to become a saint, to be an excellent husband and an amazing father. But all too often, I am neither of those two things. And God allows me the free choice to choose other than my greatest good and his will. Similarly, God allows cardinals to do bad things. He allows popes to do bad things, just like he allows me to do bad things. It is not God's will for me to do bad things. It is my will that he allows me. So that's why I struggle with the excessive hope that might be going on at the moment. But I want to hope. I want to believe. I want to trust. Trust me, I do. And it's this point right here. Surprisingly, it says, I was told the strongest supporters of Francis had never organized to get behind one candidate. I fail to understand how that is possible. I just don't understand. How do you get such actors? I mean, these people are not dumb. They are very intelligent, super political beings, I would say. You don't get to be a cardinal in the Catholic Church and as well as a bishop of a major diocese and not be a political and not be astute, savvy, smart. You don't get to be at these levels and not understand who the players are, what team they're on, and what their agenda is. So how is it possible that these people just didn't see this coming? How did they get played in this way that we got a really good pope? I'm not saying he's not, by the way. I'm not saying Leo isn't. I'm just trying to understand how it's possible. Could it be that the Holy Ghost blinded them? I want to say yes. I want to say yes, because beyond that, how do you explain it to me? I don't know that there is an explanation. I don't understand how Supich, Worrell, Tobin, McElroy, all the clan. How did this one get past them? Zupi, explain that to me. I don't understand. It doesn't register in my mind. Maybe there was too many competing candidates, and they were all just become very selfish for their guy, for their team, for their little clique, and then they didn't coalesce into a block. And maybe that's the answer. And praise be to God for it. Praise be to God for it. It goes on. They were scattered all over the place. One participant told me, recounting multiple candidates on the first ballot. As the second and third votes took place, it became clear there were only 3 contenders. First was Cardinal Erdo from Hungary. Church conservatives rallied behind him, giving him an initial block of votes. Second was Parolin, who had some Francis votes and a group of Italian cardinals behind him. Third was Prevost. He began strong with the backing of North American cardinals like Blaise Supich of Chicago, but also brought to the ballot all of the Latin cardinals as a block. By the fourth vote, it was clear. Neither Parolin nor Erdo, could win. The African and Asian cardinals saw where this was going, and they stampeded to Prevost, my source told me. So what do we make of that? Is it a new springtime in Holy Mother Church? Praise be to God. I want to believe. I do. But I know my concupiscent nature. I know why I have to go to confession. I can see it in the eyes of my children and my wife when I have to go to confession. I can experience it in the chaos of my home. That is when I have to go to confession, because the sins of the father do nothing but upset the whole household. And I know that these men are capable of at least as bad as I am. So I struggle with it. But Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. It is great to be on with you. Praise be to God. We're really sorry about our technical issues with Dr. Janet Smith. We really want to have a conversation with her. We are trying to work it out. We may have to go into the Aftershow with that, and I'll post it, of course, in the podcast and elsewhere over at the stationofthecross.com. But as soon as we get it worked out, we will have her on. I want to go to another article I saw over at the Catholic Herald. Archbishop Gonswine on Pope Leo XIV. This pope inspires hope, hope, hope. This is interesting, because you might remember Gonswine was closely connected to Benedict XVI, but also to Pope Francis. And then he was dismissed, sent packing in 2020 from the Vatican. But then he was rehabilitated under the Francis pontificate. So he's got a very interesting take here. It says, Archbishop Georg Gonswine, the former prefect of the papal household, described the results of the recent papal conclave as marking the beginning of a new era of the church, one marked with clarity, stability, and a decisive break from the confusion of the past. It says, in an interview, Gonswine described the elevation of Cardinal Robert Prevost as a moment of great and good surprise, adding that he felt an immediate sense of hope as the new pope appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. Optically and acoustically, this pope inspires hope, 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 remarked Gonswine, who was a longtime aide of Benedict XVI. It goes on. We began to count on a papacy capable of guaranteeing stability. The Archbishop, who has served as apostolic nuncio to the Baltic states since June 2024, spoke warmly of Pope Leo XIV, who he believes will strike a balance between the traditions of Benedict and the pastoral approach of Pope Francis. This is interesting because we saw that out of Marx yesterday. He was trying to make similar statements in relation to, say, fiducia supplicans. He won't abrogate it, he said. He'll just redefine it according to his thoughts. Whereas I would advocate for a total destruction of fiducia supplicans. But nonetheless, I don't get to be pope. Nobody's asking me. It goes on. If we combine Bergoglio's black shoes with Ratzinger's crystalline doctrinal clarity, Gonswine mused, without seeking originality at all costs, I think Leo XIV will offer a beautiful combination. This, he suggested, could provide the church with a sense of renewal without abandoning its rich doctrinal heritage. One of the key themes Gonswine returned to was the need for doctrinal clarity in the wake of what he described as confused years under Pope Francis. He said, there are great tensions in the church today and frightening conflicts outside. I believe that doctrinal clarity is needed now. The confusion of these years must be overcome. In this light, Gonswine sees the structures of the church not as the obstacle, but as an essential tool for helping the Pope govern. Quote, the institutions of the church are not a leprosy, he stated, affirming the importance of relying on the existing structures to provide support for the papacy. Gonswine also praised Leo XIV's decision to present a written text during the inaugural greeting, a small gesture that he believes signals seriousness and a strong sense of direction. When I saw that he had written texts in his hand, I said to myself, he had started well, Gonswine observed. This is a man who knows where he is going. Let that sink in. I caught that. When Leo XIV stepped out and he had that, paper, like it was like a notebook or something in his hand, and he stepped out and he read from that, I thought, this guy's not winging it. That was the thought in my mind, even though I had a very visceral reaction to his stepping out, to be honest with you. An overreaction, even I would say it was an overreaction. But it was interesting. Ganswein picks up on that. It goes on the subject of Leo XIV's background. Ganswein expressed his surprise at the election of an American pope, but suggested that the pope's divisive experience, having worked in both the Vatican and as a missionary in Peru, would enable him to speak to a broad range of people. He comes from many environments, not just one. Ganswein said his experience with his ability to speak many languages makes him both a pastor and a governor. Ganswein also noted that he expects the Pope will take up residence in the Apostolic Palace, as this is the traditional home for the Pope. I believe that Leo XIV will certainly go to live in the Apostolic Palace. He said that palace is intended to be the residence of the popes. It is historical in its function. Reflecting on his own time in Rome, Ganswein reiterated his belief that the tensions between the papacies of Benedict XVI and Francis must be put to rest. Quote, the season of arbitrariness is over, he said, indicating that the church is now entering a new phase. This is, he suggests, a phase in which stability and clarity will once again take precedence. He also addressed his own tensions from the Vatican to the Baltic states, confirming that his relationship with Pope Francis had been amicably resolved since his appointment. I suffered in those years. It's true, he acknowledged, referring to his removal from the Vatican in 2020. But I cleared things up with Francis before my appointment as nuncio. Ganswein is known for his conservative and traditionalist sympathies within the church, particularly in his defense of the church's liturgical practices. In 2023, in an interview, Ganswein criticized Pope Francis's restrictions on the traditional Latin Mass. These, he revealed, broke Benedict's heart. Quote, if we think for how many centuries the old Mass has been a source of spiritual life and nourishment for many people, including many saints, it's impossible to imagine that it no longer has anything to offer, close quote, he remarked. He goes on, and let's not forget that many young people who were born long before the Second Vatican Council and who don't really grasp all the drama surrounding the council, that these young people, knowing the new Mass, have nevertheless found a spiritual home, a spiritual treasure in the old Mass as well. To take this treasure away from people, well, I can't say that I'm comfortable with that, close quote. Looking ahead, Ganswein expressed confidence in the potential of Leo XIV to heal the division within the church and bring stability to its governance. Pope Prevost, he says, gives me great hope. He concluded, I am convinced that he will have a positive impact with the church in the world. He is a peacemaker. Amen. Praise be to God. Let us pray that Pope Leo XIV has great success in his pontificate, that he bridges many gaps in the faithful, from conservative to liberal and all points in between. May he reach the world. May he give a proclamation of clarity that Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation. But may he also undo the errors, not just of the last 12 years, but of the last many centuries, or rather decades is what I meant to say, the last many decades. Let us see a complete and total transformation, a reversal, because to be honest with you, I don't just want the good old days of Benedict XVI and JP2. Do you? You just want the good old days of Benedict XVI and JP2? No, I don't want the good old days of JP2 and Benedict XVI. I want the greatness of Christendom. I want Jesus Christ to reign supreme in the hearts of every human being on planet Earth, because that is the most charitable thing we can do for the world, is to give them the only way, the only path, the only shepherd, the only voice, the only means of salvation, Jesus Christ. And that's what he said, Leo XIV. In the first line he said in Italian in his very first homily. That is basically what he said. So there is great hope. Indeed, there is great hope. But let us pray he has the courage to do what must be done. The wolves wearing mitres need to go. We need to not bless same-sex couples. We need to reverse what is done to the JP2 Institute. We need to bring back the greatness of tradition and patrimony. We need to not embrace the world, the flesh, and the devil, but rather transform it for the glory of God and for the salvation of souls. Let us be courageous in these days. Let us speak out boldly for truth itself, because that truth is a person. And that truth, that person is our Savior, Jesus Christ. And he died for you, for me, and for Leo. See you tomorrow. God love you.
Did you know you can help evangelize simply by using your cell phone? The Station of the Cross is partnering with iCatholic Mobile, America's only Catholic mobile phone company. When you join iCatholic Mobile, a portion of every dollar will support our programming. Plus, you'll enjoy great service with iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, text, and talk. With iCatholic Mobile, you can stay connected with family and friends while also spreading the truth of Jesus Christ with clarity and charity. Join today at iCatholicMobile.com.
And we're back. Welcome to the Aftershow, everyone. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We're going to try and have Dr. Smith on back via vMix. We're going to test out that audio because so far nothing else is working. The phones aren't working. Nothing else has been working today, including my brain. So we're gonna give it a shot and see what happens.
Glory be to God. See, technology, it's our friend. It's also our villain. It's the evil in the room every time. May Leo preach against the technology. May we all become Luddites again. I don't know.
That'd be great.
All right.
Let's talk about. I want to start over. Edward Clancy. My apologies. I'd like to interview Dr. Smith here because I missed a great opportunity to have a conversation with her. If that's okay with you.
No problem. If it's okay, I just want to say one thing. It just that I have this opportunity. So, Dr. Smith, other than Scott Hahn's conversion story, your cassette, showing my age, Contraception, Why Not, was my most frequent gift to people 25 years ago.
Dr. Smith, could you hear Edward Clancy?
I did.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much. I tend to hear compliments. Right through.
So I didn't want to. I don't want to interrupt the interview, but I had to say it because I never got to meet you in person, and I had to say I don't know how many hearts and minds it changed, but at least the seeds are out there. And thank you very much.
Well, I thank you. It is available online at my website, janetsmith.org.
Yeah.
And since people don't hand out CDs and cassettes anymore, I'm not certain though it's free online. It's always been free, basically. Way.
Yeah.
We hand out millions of free ones. Yeah. Anyway, I'd love more people to get in contact with it. So
I'm now mute. I'll listen.
You're a good man, Edward Clancy. Thank you. All right, Dr. Janet Smith, the interview we could never have. Praise be to God. I'm glad to have you on the team. All right, so let's start. I'm going to start over. I'm going to ask you the same question I tried to get from you from when we were on the radio. But that is, what was your initial reaction when they announced Prevost and then he steps out? What was your reaction to all that?
Well, my first reaction is I had gotten myself into a delusional state. Maybe Sarah or Burke or Mueller were going to be elected. I got myself into this crazy. And then when it was not one of them, I was very disappointed. I knew nothing about Prevost. I saw his name sort of come in to notice every now and then, but it didn't seem a serious candidate to me. So, even as a cardinal of the United States, if you had asked me to name a cardinal, I wouldn't have put his name on the list. He was so unknown to me. Yeah. So then I thought it couldn't be good. I thought it just couldn't be good.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so first I was very, very despondent. And then I don't know if you would call it angry, but resigned again, like, oh my gosh, more of the same.
Right.
And
me
then
too.
Yesterday I went to talk to a friend and I was not in a good, and I even didn't want to talk about it. She said, no, let's talk about it. And then I read, there were so many articles coming out, and I just sat there and read these articles aloud to both of us. And yesterday, I was just an amazing enthusiast for him. I was just, I can do 180, but usually not within 48 hours.
I know. Yes.
Probably 5 or 6. So I do think he will be an agent of unity, and why you read that article from the Register and other places, just that he is, I think that's why he was elected, and I think he can do that. The first couple of days are just astonishing for that. I don't know if he or anyone can fix the really deep problems of the church, but oh my gosh, if we can have a period of time, at least some peace, and not every day opening up our social media and being ready to be smacked in the face with some new
and I guess
horrible thing.
I guess that's where I find myself in a complicated situation, though, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of mentioned that on the radio. I just okay, so there's a lot of good to be said here, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater or seem ungrateful. I really don't. I mean, I am grateful to hear Latin again being sort of become normalized. Praise be to God. Even among the cardinals, like watching them have to read their books to read that Latin at that first mass. Like, I was happy. I'm like, good yes, say that Latin. Good for you. Watching a pope lead the Regina Coeli from the loggia. Like, yes, please, more of this, please. Absolutely. I like the fact that he called out some of the, maybe mildly, but still like pointing out that the atrocities in Gaza can't continue. A ceasefire needs to be had. Like, I like these things. These are good things. More of this, please. But at the same time, I still have in my mind, Dr. Smith, Benedict XVI telling that reporter in 2014, Bennett, listen to me. My power ends at the door over there. Poor me. I'm just like the Pope. That's all. They don't say, stop it. Be a man. Fire them. Fire them. Put them in your prison. Don't you have a prison somewhere in Vatican City? Like, good grief, you're the vicar of Christ on earth. I want to, if my senior drill instructor would smack him if he heard him say that. Like, be a man and do your job. So if at the end of the day, all we get is the Benedict XVI again, it's not enough, Dr. Smith, in my humble opinion. It's good. It's headed in the right direction, but I'm struggling with this. I don't feel like it's enough.
Well, you had too much caffeine.
I'm not even started yet, to be honest. I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Well, Benedict was a very old man, and he was very sick.
Sure.
And as all of us who looked at him said, you got to be, what can he do? Even just being sick, let alone all the powerful, bad, or maybe even evil men around him. I mean, I think he did a very sacrificial thing. And I think, to my mind, I don't mean to be critical of you and others, but he was a very deeply prayerful, wonderful man who stretched himself way beyond his natural interests, and I'd say even abilities. He became a tremendous administrator when he was a cardinal and bishop away from Rome. And then in Rome, he did an incredible job. So there you have somebody that has poured out his life serving the Lord, and then in prayerful discernment decided he needed to hand it over to somebody who could clean up the mess. I'm not going to question that decision. I do think it's fantastic that we have a much, much younger man who seems to be very vigorous, who is very comfortable in his skin. I mean, Benedict honestly was dreaming of going back to his scholarship. He didn't ever want to be in head of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. He never wanted that. He never wanted it twice. And so I think, anyway, I'm very excited about an energetic man, young man, relatively speaking. I'm 5 years older than he is, and I feel aged, so I don't know why I talk about him as young. But, I just think there's a vibrancy there and a competence. I was very encouraged. I read that he had turned down being a bishop twice.
That's encouraging.
That's very encouraging. I mean, there's just no sign in this man's life that he had any ambition. He joined an order, and I think he rose to the top because he's just so competent. I think he wanted to be a missionary in a poor country, and he was. The problem is that competence will bring notice to you and take you out of the things like Benedict, the things that you most want to do and think you're called to do, and then put you in a position of leadership which you may have never wanted. and you're good at that too. And so I've been encouraged that he they never seem to be on a career path, a climber. He's held his cards pretty close to his chest as far as what his theological commitments are. I cannot believe he's a registered Republican and has always voted Republican. Who would ever think that? Okay, come on. And he started a pro-life group when he was a student at Villanova, when it surely was not a popular thing.
I think that was fact-checked. I think it came out that he didn't start it, but he was a member of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, even that is very good. I mean, he came.
Yeah. Amen.
The story of his beautiful mother, who her faith was so deep, and that everybody knew he was going to be a priest, as did he, from the time he was a young boy. Didn't waver. Turned down a full scholarship to Harvard Law School to become an Augustinian. That's very genuine. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, I'll get my law degree first. And instead he said, no, I'm going straight into the Augustinians. And so, I mean, not that I don't think there's a lot of, warning signs along the way here. We can review those. But to explain my flip-flop yesterday from going from nobody but me realizes how dangerous he is to, I want to share in this enthusiasm. Yeah. I find enough that's very favorable that I'm going to permit myself to have some real hope and enthusiasm. And if it gets crashed, it gets crashed. But it's been a long time since I've been really excited about church appointments. And I need it, and everybody else needs it. So
yeah, we definitely needed a break, right? We needed a break from the last pontificate. We need a break.
Yeah, and what you read for Gun Swan, that's exactly right. He's feeling the same thing. What he's feeling, you and I are feeling.
I guess what I don't love is now many of them are like, oh, now that Francis is gone, we can actually say what we mean to say. It's like, this is part of the reason why Bishop Strickland has, put himself in the situation that he's in by being so critical of Francis and being so outspoken, et cetera, because nobody else would say the truth. They're just like quietly hiding all their true intentions because they don't want to rock the boat or whatever. And it's like, if only we spoke the truth and had clarity, we could maybe do it with prudential judgment. We could have like sort of we don't have to be so like sledgehammer. We could maybe, be a little carpenter's hammer or something, but at the same time, there's so many of these guys are just now speaking out because they feel free to do so. Like that, I guess that upsets me too. I'm like, I'm so tired of the shenanigans. I'm so exhausted from them doing everything they do in the shadows and the secrets and backroom deals. And I'm just like, enough already. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And it just feels like it's never going to change.
I think you're going to just have to quit your job because
I know
you are
true.
Yeah, you are expecting something that has never existed. Is my guess. That has never existed, and maybe it will someday. But
probably not.
I mean, I hate to say that. Again, one of my recognitions of the nature of the world. I mean, I've come to. I can't believe I've lived as long as I have without seeing some fundamental truths. One is that the devil is so very, very active. And I thought he was just some murky, dark force that was kind of just tripping me up sometimes, but that he's in full-fledged battle gear against not just annoying people in their day-to-day lives, but really, in head of New World Order type things, and has found a zillion wealthy minions to do his work. That's been huge. The other is how much of this world is driven by deal making, and a kind of implicit blackmail. Again, I have something on you or one of your friends, your family member or something. That I don't think people say it aloud that often, but they look at you and you know what they know, and so you're going to do what they want to do. And the church, I think, is certainly not free from that, and maybe one of the biggest practitioners of it. If I'm right, which I believe I am, that it is permeated might not be the right word, but in very high places, and in chancery offices around the world, there's a lavender mafia that is extremely influential on everything that happens in the church, the appointments, the decisions, etc. And I think that that's not going away soon. It's not going away soon. So,
well,
yeah. And
to me, these are the telltale signs of the Leo 14th pontificate. What will we see? Let's say, and I said this yesterday, like how much time does he need? Does he need 6 months? Does he need a year? Whatever it is. Okay. So you pick the time frame, but at some point we have to stop and say, okay, is Fernandez still in charge of the CDF? If so, why? Is the JP2 Institute does it still have non-Catholic pro-abortion members? If so, why? Are we still appointing bishops that have known heterodox positions because they've said them publicly and they're still in positions of authority or influence? If so, why? Are we still tolerating the German synodal way? If so, why? Like, I think there's a whole litany here of things that are like, okay, these are the earmarkers. Who's he put in charge? What has he done? Now, the German cardinal, I think it was Marx. Was it Marx or Casper? I think it was Marx. He said, I anticipate, it's his pure speculation, of course, but he anticipates fiducia supplicans will not be abrogated or won't go away. It won't be done away with. It'll just be reinterpreted, which means Marx is going to continue to interpret it any way he wants to. You know what I mean? Like, is it good enough that we don't get rid of it, but we just say, hey, guys, by the way, it doesn't mean you can bless same-sex couples? I don't know. I just feel like that vagueness, that ambiguity is going to remain there out of a sense of being pastoral, out of a sense of being a bridge building and keeping everybody on the team. And then where are we at? Benedict XVI said we need a smaller church. We probably will have a smaller church. And I think that's kind of where we need to go. But again, nobody's calling me and asking me for my opinion, but I'm giving it anyway, I suppose, free of charge, by the way. Free of charge, I'm offering you my 2 cents.
There you go. Well, I think two immediate things will be who he appoints to be the prefect that he held to the dicastery of the bishops. How he got it, I don't know. Why he got it, I don't know. But he's now vacated that, and that's an incredibly powerful position. Who's going to be his Secretary of State? Is he going to find a new one that is more amenable to his way of doing things? Right. I agree. He was not a fan of fiducia supplicans. He is definitely an opponent of same-sex marriages.
Amen.
It seems to me that he there's no reason to think anyway that he has broken with the church's teaching on sexuality. And I read some article, I don't know, in Rate Chele or something that was just gushing with, he believes all these things. I don't know that he does, but he's not. I saw a little video the other day when he was not yet a bishop, and he had been at some meetings in Rome with Bergoglio, who was not yet the Pope, and said that their meetings didn't go that well. They weren't in full agreement, and he was now secure that he would never be appointed a bishop. That was a very candid and bold thing to say, and very revealing. Of course, he wasn't Pope at the time, but I mean, Bergoglio wasn't Pope at the time. So I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. I hope all of them are good. There won't all be good, but I don't think he's a fan of synodality. I mean, I think we have to keep in mind that he's a canon lawyer. And he seems to me a real canon lawyer in the sense that he has respect for the law of the church, which Pope Francis did not. He just waved his hand to change things whenever he wanted to. And I don't think Leo the 14th is going to do that. And there's no place in canon law for the kind of synodality or in church documents for the kind of synodality that Pope Francis is pushing. Now, again, Pope Leo the 14th had to say in his opening speech that he was for synodality. He had to say that. I mean, he was he's speaking to both sides of the church now. A synodality where lay people do not vote is a possibility.
Sure.
Right?
It's also historical.
And so if he has a different, when he says, of course, synodality is a good thing, if he means talking to and consulting the faithful, learning what the concerns are, et cetera, there are difficulties with church teaching, okay. Consulting them as a body to decide church teaching and the direction of the church is crazy. That's not what the Catholic Church is.
Right.
So I think we have to keep an open mind on what he thinks synodality is.
Yeah, I would love to see him come out and say, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do the synodality thing, but it's only going to be bishops. There's not going to be any lay folk. There's not going to be any priests involved unless there is assistance to the bishops. But it's the bishops because that's the historical context around synods. In fact, St. Athanasius of Alexandria held synods with other local regional bishops. Also, Clement of Rome, the fourth successor of St. Peter in Rome, wrote a letter to the Corinthians in around 80 AD, basically chastising them for firing bishops in the region. Part of that was from synodality. So it goes way back to the early days of the church, but not the way it's been played out the last 12 years. So we'd love to see him correct that. And maybe he will. And praise be to God if he does. But it's just a lot of unknowns. And I think it's just driving me crazy because I see so much injustice and I'm like, this isn't right. Something needs to be done. And we want it done yesterday because I'm American, Dr. Janet Smith, America. And in America, we don't wait till tomorrow to what we can be doing today. You know what I'm saying? And
done. Part of all of our problem is that we think about the church as a U.S. government and that you can bring in a whole new president who is going to crack the whip.
That's true.
We've all been dizzy for the last 100 days, and nobody's ever thought it's never been done before. Nobody thought it could be done, and it is being done. And again, I find if I don't consult my media within about every 3 hours, I'm way behind on what has happened. And to think that that's going to happen in the church, it just isn't. The Pope does not have the power, nor do we have the tradition of just wildly replacing. What's going to be interesting is that there's, I don't know how many, but there's like a handful, which is a lot actually, of cities in the United States who usually have a cardinal, don't have one. And it will be very that could be a major way.
Los Angeles, you mean?
Los Angeles, I think Denver.
Boston, is the guy in Boston, the new guy in Boston? He's not a cardinal, is he?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
All right, so there's more than two, and I think there might be as many as 4 and 5. I didn't look this up this morning, but that could be a major point of influence on the United States. What bothered me at first, one of my big concerns, was the recent appointment of McElroy to D.C. That was on Prevost's watch. Not that I think he had much control over it.
Right.
I mean, the Pope and his advisors can override any decision or advice. So I don't know what his advice was. But to have someone in D.C. who is so very anti-Pope, so very pro-open borders, really annoying. And I initially thought that that's probably who Leo XIV was. But since then, I've had reason to question that. He seems to have some respect for the laws of the country in respect to immigration. He just wants things, as he says, done in a humane way. So far as I can tell, they have been done in a humane way. But that may be the kind of stuff you have to say in order to get through lunch in Rome without people throwing things at you.
I don't know. I think the Italians are kind of getting sick of the illegal immigration themselves. Their own prime minister.
No, I thought being thrown at by other cardinals.
That may be true, but they're all old men. They can't throw anybody. Trust me, it's fine. It's fine. It's going to be okay. They're all geriatrics. They can't deal with it. It's just very interesting. I've been saying this for years. As a country in the United States, we talk about illegal immigration and building walls and stopping the illegal activity. And yes, absolutely, we have every right to do so. And I would argue the government has an obligation to protect its citizens to do so. However, we also need a fair system with which good people can apply and come to our country. And when was the last time there was real effort towards a reforming of the system with which people can apply to come to our country? And I really feel like we need to put people in place who are great judges of character. So that when they evaluate these cases, they can evaluate the character of the people. Are they really wanting to come to our country and be a part of our country? Or are we going to get like Rep Tlaib or some of these other people who like obviously hate America, but they're Congress people? You know, it's like that makes no sense to me. If you want to come to our country, great. We're a melting pot. Then you want to be a part of the success of this country. You don't want to undermine this country. And I think that's part of the reformation that needs to happen in the immigration process. We need to be great judges of character and let good people in while keeping bad people out. I don't think we've done that. I don't think a wall is necessarily going to stop it, but hopefully it'll slow it down. We'll see. We'll see what he has to say about that.
It already has. I mean, we're almost nobody's coming across illegally right now, and it wasn't so much that the laws need to be reformed. The practice needs to reform. The laws were good for the quota of how many people from which countries and how they were how to be vetted. None of that was happening. They just opened the door, gave them a credit card, gave them a social security number, gave them a ticket to a luxury hotel in New York, and that's what was happening. And so what Trump has done is he has just shut all that down, and then he's come up with some brilliant plans. I mean, people were using that some apps that allowed them to get through by just claiming that they were political prisoners, and so they were granted without any vetting or investigation. They were granted asylum status. Well, he has reconfigured that app so that people can self-select to get a flight home. All right. And I think they're giving not only a flight home, but like $1,000 to go away. And if you do that, you can, when you leave, you can reapply.
Right.
All right. But if you are going to be deported sort of forcefully, then you are not going to have that opportunity. Now, I hate to think that that's necessary. I really would like it to be that we could have a program and we could find out, because I keep thinking that we basically opened our door. It's like if I had no trespassing signs all over my property, and then I open my front door and I see some people out there. And I say, "Oh, come on in." They say, "Well, but it says no trespassing." I say, "Don't pay any attention to that. Just come right on in, and I'll give you food and health care and everything." And now sort of whimsically, a certain couple years later, I say, "Get out of here. I had no trespassing signs, and you came in." And you say, "Wait a minute! You opened the door and invited me in, and you made me feel like a guest." And I said, "Get out of here! You came in illegally." There's something really incoherent about that. And I mean, I understand that I think there has to be a real rethinking about how we treat these people that basically came in with the door wide open. We didn't make them feel like they were illegal immigrants. We did not treat them as illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
We treated them as honored guests more than we honor our veterans, our homeless, etc. We gave them preference. That's not their fault. All right. That's our fault. We need to find the people who did that, which would be Biden and Obama and their administration.
Right.
They're the true lawbreakers.
Yeah.
Right?
Remember when Obama's administration were giving guns to the cartels? It's like, right. Well, it started under Bush. Okay, to defend Obama just a wee bit. Bush started it. Obama made it great. I mean, it's like, wow, what are we doing here? Golly gee whiz, something's got to change. I do want to go back to Pope Leo. By the way, good morning, everybody. I see you in your chats. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chats as well. By the way, Penn State Dad today celebrating 36 years of blissful, amazing marriage. Praise be to God. Penn State Dad, should I fact check that with your wife? I'm just curious. Should I call and get her opinion on whether or not it was 36 years of incredibly blissful, amazing marriage. I'm teasing, of course. Congratulations. Happy 36. Praise Jesus. You're ahead of me by 11 years. I'm only at 25. And no, don't call my wife and ask her what she thinks, because you're not going to want to know. But anyway, I think Anthony, our good friend from Avoiding Babylon, is stirring up the pot in the chat box. Good morning to you, Anthony. Thanks for hanging out. Flying Tigers, good morning. I think I can't remember, was it Anthony or somebody was mentioning, and it just keeps coming back and like messes with my head a little bit. I still just don't understand how each side, each faction, the liberal modernist faction, the conservative orthodox traditional faction, how do both sides claim to be happy right now? I just can't wrap my head around that. One of them has to be wrong.
Joe, I have a question. Is either side...
Put yourself on screen. You could you stop. You always do that.
I always
put yourself on screen. There you go.
Because I'm too busy thinking.
Because you think after you put yourself on screen. There you go. Now,
I have a question. Which of these two sides might possibly be known for lying?
Okay, I don't think it matters for the sake of the point. Yes,
sure.
One of them has to be wrong. Yep. Okay, and clearly both of them, technically, both could be lying. It's possible. And I certainly don't know who is lying, but that's not my. It's neither here nor there.
I think there's less lying going on than we think too.
Sure, yes, but my point is it doesn't matter, and the reason why I don't think it matters is because they're both out there joyfully, clearly claiming that this was a great choice, and that boggles my mind. Now, either A, one of them is lying, or B, maybe they all think he's a great choice from their own point of view. From their perspective, they somehow think he's the right way. I don't understand how a Jimmy Martin is happy, and he clearly expressed that, and we put a video out, and you watch the video, he had prior experience Prevost, and that's what he shared. He goes, I got to hang out with him at the Synod. He was a sincere, genuine guy. Like, James Martin was being very sincere about that. How is it possible that Jimmy Martin didn't know that Prevost was not going to be on the Rainbow Coalition team? How did he not know that? That doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree with you perfectly. He almost certainly knew that.
Tobin was like gushing. Oh, he was the one. I was looking at him. It was like an aura around him. I'm like, come on. Really? Really? Of course I believe Burke. Of course I believe Sarah. I believe them 100%. I'm not questioning them. It's the other side that's throwing me for a big loop. Like, what? This doesn't add up. It's weird.
It's funny how peace, peace has a tendency of disarming both sides, right? Like, just saying.
Maybe you're right.
Just saying.
I want you to be. Don't get me wrong. I want you to be right about this. I'm just like, I guess I'm just not ready to trust completely.
By the way, I don't know if you caught this, Joe. I was up all like super late last night. And I tagged you in something. Did you see that little bit about the allegations of the failures to investigate things in Peru?
I didn't get to look at that. Why don't you read it to us?
There's a journalist who has been very.
Can you read it? Can you read it?
1 second. Let me pull it up. I'm explaining it. There's a journalist who's been quite rigorous in investigating and whistleblowing or whatever issues down in. Let me see here. Yeah. Journalist Pedro Salinas, who investigated and exposed crimes committed by members of the now-defunct Sodalitium Christianae Vitae, including sexual, physical, and psychological abuse, highlighted that Prevost always expressed his support for the victims and was one of the most reliable clerical authorities in Peru. And I hear from a clerical contact that there's basically allegations that the allegations against Prevost are being pushed by former members of the Sodalitium and Opus Dei.
Oh, ouch. Oh. That's
so rough. It's Opus Dei back again, our old friends. They're the ones pushing this against Prevost.
I can see it. The Da Vinci Code Part 4 right now. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, but anyway,
by the way, so that you just reminded me, so when I was live streaming I had my out of this world reaction to the name Prevost, which was out of this world reaction, really. I also went on to the the College of Cardinals Report.com website, and I read the profile of Prevost during that live stream. So if you go back and look at the live stream, I go through his entire profile from the report. And in the report, when they talk about the abuse case allegations, they actually link to an article about the payoffs to the girls. And the girls were the ones saying, hey, we were paid to be silent. One of the big questions that I would love the Vatican to clarify on this case is whether or not the girls had to sign non-disclosure agreements. If they were paid and forced to sign an NDA, I feel like that's inappropriate, and there's rightful criticism in that. Maybe Prevost had nothing to do with it, and it was just the attorney, in which case I would want to hear His Holiness say that, right? To say it. Hey, that was the attorney that did that. Like, I would understand. I'd get it. Attorneys can be that way. But I think it needs to be addressed whether or not they sign NDAs. A victim should not be forced to sign an NDA in exchange for for the reparation money because they were the ones abused. Like, that seems wildly inappropriate. But I also read in that profile from the College of Cardinals Report.com on Prevost how he had really did. It seemed like even in that report that he did everything he could, everything he was supposed to do to address the victims and to be as fair. And he even to the point where he encouraged them to report their cases to the civil authorities so that criminal charges can be pursued. That's all on the up and up.
I would like to get in on this one because that was one of my initial big concerns, and it hasn't completely gone away. I read many articles. I don't the one that was in Crux was I thought very unbalanced because all it seemed to do was want to show the bad, what were considered by the author to be the very bad reputation of the canon lawyer that was involved. Totally disproportionate. Where in other articles it said the girls had reported it, and someone making a big point that it was like 4 years after. I think 4 years after is nothing in the sex abuse world.
Right.
People wait 20, 30 years to report it.
Exactly.
Okay. And the girls say, again, is anybody trying to interview the girls? Is anybody trying to get to them and their family? They say that they were never they say they were never interviewed for any investigations that were done.
Why is
I honestly
that?
don't think anybody. Well, I've seen that all over the place.
Right.
I've been working with a victim for years now, who from allegedly accusing a priest of allegedly, I got to get that word in there, of having ritual satanic sexual abuse when she was 9 and 10. And she reported it to the Archdiocese of Omaha. And Lucas has claimed that it was thoroughly investigated, and in fact says that the AG's office of Nebraska, Attorney General's office, investigated it. And I've talked to the investigator, and he said we never received any files from the diocese and asked several times. So I think, from my impression, is that Lucas is lying up and down. The victim that I've been dealing with says that there was another girl involved at the same time, and they had never asked her name and never tried to contact her. What kind of investigation is that? And it sounds like the same thing when I was reading about what went on in Peru, and that when you say go to the civil authorities, that's policy, and it's almost to get it off their back. Send it to the civil authorities. If the civil authorities clear them, and usually they don't because it's past the statute of limitations, and so you say, oh well, the civil authorities did nothing, so it must not have happened. And you say, wait a second, that's not true. We asked the AG's office, why don't you investigate this case more deeply? And they said, because we only do it when we have 2 victims, because there are so many such cases. We can't dig deep. We've got too much on our hands already. So I think that whatever happened, it seems like I don't know how much Prevost was involved, but they did it by the book. And by the book is that you say I don't know who you do. The way you do an investigation is you go to the parish and you ask the secretary, and the janitor. Did they know anything? Did they see anything? You talk to the family and you say, did they come home? And what did they tell you? When did they tell you? What kind of details do they tell you about where it happened? Does that correspond with a real room and a real place? There's so many things that a real investigation has to do that there's no evidence that they do it at all. All right. So I'm concerned that he just followed the protocol that the church has practiced forever and still does, which is that the victim is the problem and you do everything to make the victim go away.
Well, let me just say this though. Okay. So I totally agree with what you just said, but here's the other thing that I've noticed in my short 50 years on planet Earth. Human beings will do whatever they're trained to do. Attorneys treat paralegals poorly because they were trained to do that by the people who trained them. Doctors treat nurses poorly, generally speaking, not always, of course. I'm speaking broadly here, but they do that because that's how they were trained. They treat strangers like patients because they see themselves as a doctor and very important, so like we just see people they default to their training. And I would say bishops are no different in this regard. They're trained to handle these things this way, so they go do things this way without even thinking about it. I mean, look how many times the doctor has given out the shot, even though the shot may be bad for people. They just do it because they were told to do so, and it's like, I see him in this category.
I was saying that. That's what I was saying, that he was following the protocol that is there.
But I guess the reason why I'm emphasizing it, Dr. Smith, is because what I want, and I'll never get it, and I don't deserve it because anyway, I want Leo the 14th to make clear statements on this now that he's the Pope. That's all I want.
I do too. And he also has a good record. I mean, he does have a record of putting in place some safeguards for victims, et cetera, more advanced than most places or all places in Latin America. So I think that it's on his radar. I think that I have some hope. If he gets rid of Rupnik right away, all right, that seems a glaring blister on the face of the church. And from what I've been told, that what got him elected, what got him a coalition of people from the Francis appointees that didn't vote for a Francis successor, all right, is that first was fiducio supplicans, that they hate that. The third world countries hate that, all right? And then it was Rupnik. What is that guy still doing around?
Exactly.
And we have to think, I mean, this is again my statement before about everything runs by deals and blackmail. He's got to have something on somebody.
I don't care. Turn the light on. Let the cockroaches scramble. Just come clean.
Yes, exactly.
Come clean.
Come clean. But the question is, who is it that they've got something on, and what does he have on other people, and what is he going to spill? I'm sorry, it cascades. This whole thing cascades. If he got rid of Rupnik, there would be I would be dancing in the streets. All right. And that if that doesn't happen, I'm just going to think there's some powerful somebody who has something on somebody that has something on somebody. That's going to, what's he going to do about all of that?
All of this just reminds me of how bad of a Pope I would actually be, because I got the match. We're burning it down, people. I mean, that'd be me. That'd be totally me. Hey, I got to get Edward Clancy back in on this. Edward, you've been great hanging out in the background there. Praise be to God. Welcome back. You brought up in the chat box Julio Cesar Grassi from Argentina. That was a big scandal under the Francis pontificate because he chastised the victims in that regard instead of supporting them, right? That was a big, major deal.
Yeah, correct. And also there was an issue with meetings.
We're getting a lot of background noise. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Edward, any thoughts here? We've been talking about so much with Dr. Smith. Did you want to weigh in on any of the points we've been discussing?
Oh, sure. I mean, Dr. Smith's points are all, spot on. The Julio Cesar Grassi, for those who don't know, he was a priest who oversaw an orphanage for, I think, deaf and infirm children, and apparently was convicted of 11 years of abuse of at least 2 victims, if not more, of children. He was sentenced or is in the process of being sentenced. And then the Argentinians priest put together a 2-volume dossier or legal brief, if you will, a few thousand pages in support of his have his sentence removed. And at that time, their victims came out and they asked late Pope Francis to speak to the victims, and there was no effort made by the Vatican to connect them. So that's a situation where I think Pope Leo can make extreme steps in not only changing by ending the problem, but also by dealing with the victims, by making recompense to, at least at the spiritual level, to make a really good connection with these people, to show them that they're not outside the church, that harm was done and part of the church was responsible, but it's important for us to help them heal. Archbishop Kaigama many years ago speaking about the Chibok girls, had said that there's 273 girls who have been stolen, and they will come back less than human. But the church will be ready to receive them and to rebuild their lives and to heal them, or help them to heal with God's grace. That is what we need to do. That is one of the efforts that needs to be pushed in this pontificate. That whatever the sins were that were not dealt with, we need to start healing. We need to start removing those in power who did nothing, and find people who will do something and also help the healing process.
Well, it ought to be very interesting to see what happens next, and I guess the big question in my mind still remains: how much time will need to pass before he starts to feel very comfortable and sort of settled in and kind of gets the lay of the land and knows who the players are, and then what's the prudential choice to deal with this issue, with that issue, with this issue before we start to see things happening. Now, Jake, we were hearing rumors about rolling back Traditionis Custodes already. That seems premature and early for such rumors.
I'm not hearing any confirmation of that. This was something that I believe it was John Geetze or I forget his last name, but he's a pretty well respected old school journalist, TLM attendee for Newsmax, but he's been around for decades. He said that he had a source in Rome telling him that
they were rolling it back.
Restrictions would be lifted, sooner than you think, type of thing. Rorate Caeli, who has very good sources in Rome and knew about TC coming down the pike, says they haven't heard anything about that. So
it would seem like it would be really early for that.
Grain of salt. Exactly. Yeah. He's again, Rome itself moves very slow, and he is going to be careful. He's going to be he's a lawyer. He's going to take his time. I mean, look at him speaking to the media. Like when he talked with Lester Holt, they didn't let them use any of the audio. Someone asked him, "Oh, do you have any message for the church in America?" And he just says, "Many," and kept moving on. He's not, he doesn't like journalists, which already makes him the greatest pope in I don't know how many decades. And he clearly takes his time to think about things. He's come out with a prepared speech for everything. Like he's being careful.
That was very nice to see that he was not just off the cuff, for sure. The whole fact-checking thing, so Edward Penton is debunking the visitation with Cardinal Burke. He says that did not happen. That wasn't real, which is interesting because there's so many people reported that. Myself, I repeated it 1,000 times, so clearly that wasn't right. Also, and thanks to Father Bransich, hat tip to Father Bransich, our good friend from the Ask a Priest Live program. He also gave me a good fact check this morning. He said you are able to say a TLM in the basilicas, but it's only one per day. So it's like you have to schedule that carefully to get the opportunity. And he had an opportunity. I think he said he said a TLM in St. Mary Major. So praise be to God. If he said that was under the Francis pontificate, that was one per day. So these TLMs that we're now hearing about, I guess they were previously approved or scheduled under the Francis Pontificate. They're just happening now, I guess, more publicly because of the conclave and the news, of, et cetera, and the possibility that Leo XIV may be more trad friendly. And we would love to see him roll back the restrictions on the TLM. That would be a great thing for Holy Mother Church and for the world itself. That's definitely headed in the right direction, a relaxing of these restrictions, but we'll have to see. Hey, Christine OFS, good morning. It says, Bishop Schneider to Edward Clancy's comments to purge. Bishop says, if we do not remove the evil, heal the sins, the prayers for holiness will not be heard or graces given to the church. Yeah, I've got Bishop Schneider coming on the team tomorrow morning, by the way. So he will be here hanging out with us. We'll ask him directly what his thoughts were. And now when I heard that Francis had died, I reached out to him immediately. He said he did not want to be interviewed until the new Pope was elected. So we will have him on the team. We're going to talk about his new book, by the way. Among getting his comments about the conclave or whatever, he's got a new book, Salve Regina, a Rosary Crusade to plead for holy popes. So praise be to God. It would be an amazing thing to say we have a whole series of holy popes. So we'll have that conversation with Bishop Schneider tomorrow. Also on the team tomorrow was Michael Haynes from LifeSite News, getting the latest out of the Vatican from his perspective as a journalist. He was at the meeting with the journalists and the Holy Father yesterday. We'll get his take on all of that as well. So, Tradish Mom, have you seen Piers Morgan's interview with the older brother, Lewis? I mean, I don't know, but which brother is it that's like, he's like, he's very, let's just say, colorful in his use of vocabulary in regards to Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Like I would say in a bad way. I would say it's like I'm having flashbacks to my old Marine Corps days. And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Could you imagine I saw a video on the AP of one of the Pope's brothers, and I don't know their names. I don't remember which one is which. But the AP was doing a video interview with him when the Pope called. He calls the Pope back and gets the Pope on the phone, on speaker, on camera. And Leo's like, I'm being recorded like right now. I'm like, that's so awkward. Like, this is the shenanigans you're going to have to deal with, Leo, with your brothers in America and every reporter sticking a microphone and camera in their face. And they seem to be happy for it. Like, they're like open to it. So like, I feel bad for him actually in that regard. Like, oof, yikes. Robert the Bruce, good morning to you. Penn State Dad says, Joe, my wife is the one who told me that we're happy. Praise be to God. Praise be to God. I'm glad you're happy after 36 years of marriage. Congratulations again. Congratulations again. Let's see here. I got a lot of people hanging out with us this morning. Appreciate all of you being here. T-Storm, good morning to you. Those brothers are cringy. Pope needs to have a talk with those brothers and tell them to stop talking to the media. Exactly. I would. He probably already has, to be honest with you. Probably already has. We'll see how it all goes down. But Kevin, good morning to you. Jane Steves, good morning. Michelle, rough show with good content. I know the technical problems lately have been, I don't know what the deal is. I'm not sure what causes it. Kevin, good morning. Sharon, good morning to you. Mary, good morning to you. Eileen, Paul, our friend from Buffalo, good morning. Praise be to God. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Janet, we got only a minute or so left here before we say goodbye for today. I'm glad that we got to at least have some conversation with you, but what do you think is the one thing that you want to see most in the short term of his papacy?
Oh, I as far as I think that we'll know who he is by who he appoints to be the dicastery of the prefect of the dicastery of the bishops, and what he does about the appointment for Secretary of State. Those are huge. I'm already so happy. Of course, he's brought so much Latin in, which seems to me is maybe it's just a trick to get us gullible trads lined up behind it, but he seems to
that's my
he
fear.
Seems to true. Yeah, I fear too, and that's not very generous. But we've been hoodwinked before,
right?
And so we're understandably cautious. But nonetheless, I think he truly loves Latin. I don't know that he's a huge. They say has been saying the Latin Mass, traditional Latin Mass for years while he's in Rome.
I've heard that, yeah.
So, yeah, I hope that's true. And I think if you want to talk about unity, again, and again, he's a canon lawyer, and he can go right back to the canon law that says that bishops are the ones who are to decide what liturgies are appropriate for their diocese. And that was usurped by Francis. So if he just says, no, we're just going to go back to what the canon law says, and Pope Francis said, Pope Benedict said it could never be abrogated, it could never disappear. Let's just let it be. As many people want to have the Latin Mass, that'll be a hugely unifying feature, and it's a long-term thing because it really deepens the faith of people. It brings forth great vocations. It makes families very strong, and so it might seem like a sop thrown to a bunch of desperate people, which is what we are. I say, throw us that sop, and you're just going to see so much good come from that.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a major thing.
All right.
A small thing too.
Sure.
In a way, a small thing.
Yeah.
I don't think the bishops of the world are opposed to the traditional Latin Mass. I think has caused tremendous unrest in the diocese. If you allow a few Latin Masses, I'd like many, of course, but you will have some harmony that you haven't had, and you'll have some generous donors who are now not donating because they are being treated like we're sort of like trash.
I think the bishops, though, need to be in the habit of maybe pastorally, carefully expressing their opinion back to the Holy Father. They can't just go along to get along. If they don't personally agree with this decision, just like the African bishop who flew to the Vatican over Fiducia Supplicans, they need to do the same thing. Your Holiness, I don't think we should be suppressing the traditional forms of piety and sacraments. I think it's a bad thing, Your Holiness. Like, go there and, with a sense of reverence and respect to the office, express that opinion, just like the African bishops have now set a precedent. But they don't. They're like, okay, no problem. And then they just go about the business. And it's like, that's to me what I would love to see to change. Edward Clancy, what do you see? What would you like to see in the short term of this pontificate happen?
Well, a few things. I have a friend who knows Cardinal Burke very well, and they said that he is beaming and smiling for the first time in months.
Yes,
which I just take as a good sign. I don't know if that's relief or it's actual happiness decision.
Good.
The other thing I would say, following with Dr. Smith,
I just want to put so is Supich. He's beaming, smiling ear to ear.
Well, he's got a Chicago guy, so I guess maybe it's
it's a White Sox thing. I got you. Okay.
Yeah. But the other thing I think would signal is if Pope Leo meets with Cardinal Zen, if Pope Leo has real good communication with the Patriarch Sacco and other church leaders who are in or on the front lines of persecution, if there's dialogue and communication that is allowed that seems to have been halted in the last 10 or 12 years, those will be positive signs. There was a lot of communication from Pope Francis, example, with the children in Gaza, but nothing really concrete was done other than, maybe the media event. Cardinal Pizzabella, who, I had the pleasure of working with, is another man that I would love to see in a position of prominence, either advising the Pope or, doing something like that. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to leave his episcopate in Jerusalem, but again, Secretary of State, wouldn't that be great? I mean, if Cardinal Pizzabella was Secretary of State, it might even be, in a sense, better than having him as Pope. Because oftentimes in these administrations, the Pope, as Pope Benedict showed, can be limited. It's the agents, it's the lieutenants. Those are the ones that do all the work and actually get stuff done. If you have a strong, bold person like, example, Cardinal Pizzabella as Secretary of State, it could be transformational. You could see someone, the man volunteered to be a hostage, to take the place of the people who were being tortured by Hamas.
Clearly he has diplomatic skills, right? Like he might step into that role very easily. Hey, real quick, Jake, what name comes to your mind for a young-ish or maybe not as old cardinal who could take over the CDF from Fernandez that is solid?
Young-ish cardinal?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, look, Sarah comes to mind, obviously, like, a Mueller maybe come back. Yeah. But is there anybody in the next generation under them that might also be a name? Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind. The young,
maybe an archbishop.
The young cardinal I quite like a lot is Francis Leo of Toronto, the Archbishop of Toronto.
Oh, okay.
But he's very young. He's very young. Like he's got potential to be a papabile once after Leo's term. He's quite young, but seems very, very solid. But I'm not sure if he's any kind of doctrinal expert in that way, in the way that you kind of want to see.
I'm just looking
DDF
curious if there's a name out there that we haven't been thinking about. Be like, oh, that'd be the guy.
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
Solid, super solid.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm not sure about actual cardinals. Yeah, nothing.
Well,
no name comes immediately
I'm just
to
curious
mind right now.
Hey, Richard Corwin, good morning to you. Janice, good morning. Christine OFS, good morning again. Praise be to God. Glad you guys are on the team today. Our insiders are amazing. Love having you guys here. Thanks for doing it. Praise be to God. We're just about out of time. Final thoughts, Dr. Janet Smith, any last words?
Yeah, I'd say put Schneider into CDF.
There you go. Why didn't we say that? Why didn't we say that? We should have said that. Like, why didn't I come up with that idea? That's a great idea. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Bishop Strickland is available.
He's got time on his hands. No, he doesn't. I'm going to Greece and Turkey and Rome with him on Saturday. He does not have time.
In July.
Yes,
you can do it in July.
July, fine, but not until then because we're busy, he and I. Thank you both. Edward Clancy, God love you. Thank you. Right. Janet Smith, I'm sorry for all the technical problems. I promise to have someone beaten and flogged publicly after.
Probably me.
Glad you're on the team. Teasing.
I'm glad it's not me.
It's probably me, to be honest. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you both for hanging out with us. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have Bishop Schneider on the team and Michael Haynes. Do us a favor. Share us with a friend. In spite of our technical problems, it's still a great conversation. Love hanging out with you, and we'd appreciate if you would spread the word. God love you. God bless you. We'll see you there.